about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So today we have seen a historic IT outage. It's probably one that the world has never seen. And it did spark a huge domino effect across multiple industries. Medical facilities crippled, flights, transportation sector crippled, banks, legal service, I think the Harvey Weinstein case had to be put on hold. I mean, legal proceedings. Why? Because of an IT outage. Even casinos had issues. We're being told that slot machines couldn't work. Not good. Apparently, the blackout was affected by Microsoft apps. It was the CrowdStrike Falcon sensor software, which crashed during an update. Of course, the first question we all had was this a cyber attack? Was this a foreign element? They're saying no, this is not an assault. This is not a cyber attack. This is not a hacker. No ransom. It was an update of CrowdStrike's Falcon sensor software that crashed. All right. Initial reports are saying it could take up to 36 hours to fix. In terms of planes and flights, we've seen over 6,000 delays, multiple airlines citing issues. Some of them are back up and running. Apparently, fleets had to be grounded. We couldn't function in hospitals, travel sector, banks, economy, all across. In fact, Starbucks app, I guess, couldn't work. This was sadly affecting so many different industries, which again, I have a huge problem with our being so dependent and vulnerable and relying so much on tech. But hearing that some hospitals did go to paper and pen, which I was trained in, which wasn't really a problem when I was in training. People were concerned that there'd be medication errors. And I get when you're used to software, when you're used to computers, you want to still be able to use them. But I heard that even surgeries were canceled. Somebody needs surgery. They need to get that done. But because of the software crash, and Microsoft powers a lot of our systems. And so we're going to be hearing more about this throughout the day, throughout the weekend. In fact, the vulnerability that now this poses. I think even the Department of Homeland Security, they were even down. Federal agencies were down. Even though many don't work on Friday, still very vulnerable right now. I know my computers run Microsoft Windows. So far, so good. Show's going good. So I think we're independent of what's going on there. But this Falcon sensor software apparently crashed, and we're being told as it related to an update. Now, I'm not very good with software updates. Every now and then I will show you guys that my iPhone says we're going to update tonight. You know, we're going to schedule for an update tonight. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get my hair done. Glad I don't have any plans tonight because I get to brace for a software update. And every now and then people on social media are like, you're only on update 14 you should be on update 17, or I don't actively update. I understand these software updates are necessary because of bugs, because of enhancements, because they fix things that might not be working well. But I get nervous because you're taking something that's working and allowing there to be another variable. It's from a psychological standpoint, it's kind of fascinating because I think there's a lot of people out there like me going, I think I'm good. I think I'm good with Windows 95. Windows 95 worked great for me. Do I really have to update it with 30 over the last 30 years? I mean, and having had computers crash and things not work well, it's frightening because we're so dependent on it. I mean, when you hear that hospital facilities they had to cancel surgeries. Why the hell are we so dependent and vulnerable to a software update? If somebody needs surgery, we do the flipping surgery. If we have to go to paper and pen, we go to paper and pen. We could always later upload. We could always later scan. No. You know, I heard there was somebody who was pavement pounding, a term you don't really hear much now. Pavement pounding is where you go job to job, door to door, trying to find a job. I pavement pounded when I needed a job. And so I had recommended to many of you, if you think from a IT standpoint, HR doesn't really look at your papers and doesn't meet you, go. Let HR meet you and say, look, you know, I am applying online or I have applied online, but I wanted to give you my resume. I wanted you to at least, see a face behind the email. And if there are any openings, please let me know. And one person had done that, not to after my advice, but he just did that in general. And the person at the counter was, just go online. What do we do with paper? It was almost like paper is a dirty thing. Now, I love trees. I worked for the EPA. I get it. I don't want us to be using paper when we don't need to. The emailing seems to be easier. But if we can't do surgery, if we can't, train, subways, I mean, everything crashed. They couldn't have legal proceedings because of this. Really? If you know how to type, you could type this out on paper. I get everything is all on. We need to come up with a better fail-safe option where if the software crashes or gets hacked, which I think is really in our near future because cyber attacks are going to be one of the first, I guess, assaults when we do enter foreign conflicts or any other conflict. So we should have this fail safe where, all right, if the software crashes or the computers are offline, we go to this system here. It could be another system. It could be paper and pen. But for the love of the Lord, for us to be crippled by a stupid software update, bad. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So, yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen, and big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, our ex Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So I don't usually watch a lot of the conventions. I remember in 2008, I watched Bill Clinton speak at the Democratic National Convention. With the Republican National Convention, I understand it goes for days, such as the Democratic one, and you have a lot of speakers, and I'm just so busy, I don't have time to watch it. But I did tune in last night a little bit. You got to see Hulk Hogan speak, which is I forgot they were friends. I think they've been friends ever since Rocky III. They've been friends for multiple decades. Kid Rock performed. I didn't really, I usually don't watch the conventions, and I apologize. It just, sitting through speeches, it's kind of hard when you're as busy as I am, and I had to see patients and get ready for a trip. But what was really striking was former President Trump getting up on stage, and I didn't listen to the whole speech. Again, I'm honest. I didn't have time, but I did listen to where a few, actually, a good part of it. It was a long speech, and I remember it was almost midnight, I think, by the time he ended, because they had him on stage after about 11 p.m. And he recounted the assassination attempt. And he said he was only going to talk about it once, not going to hear this again from him. And when somebody is shot at, assaulted, raped, car accident, I think it's very healing to talk about it, but it's not easy for people to talk about, especially hours after it happened. And for Trump to be able to go up there and speak about it, it was. But one thing that was very striking, and I think a lot of us have kind of wondered this, is why did he turn his head? Well, he turned his head because of a graphic. There was a graphic about immigration, and he showed the graphic to the National Convention. What it was, there were charts, and it was a pretty busy graphic that, considering being done in a speech. Usually in a speech, you're just going to have some big font, just the letters, but he would go off the cuff a lot. And so there was apparently this graphic, and he turned his head to look at this graphic. And because of that miraculous angle at which he was looking at this graphic, the bullet only hit his ear, whereas it would have very easily hit his skull or penetrated the brain and killed him instantly. And so the graphic obviously showed a dramatic change in the border and illegal immigration, illegal migrant crossings, etc. And so, somebody could make an argument that the border crisis or Biden's border policies actually saved his life. Now, I'm not saying the border chaos is a good thing, but people ask, how did he survive? How did he survive? My only answer is the grace of God. The grace of God. God saved him. But if we want to be a little bit more granular into what could have possibly happened, if there wasn't such a demonstrative change, right, in the statistics from the border, and if the border wasn't in crisis as it has been, and both Democrats and Republicans agree, it's probably that and economy are some of the top issues bipartisanly in terms of this next election. If the immigration he might not have necessarily had that graphic. He might have not have necessarily went to look at that, because usually with your teleprompters, I don't know if you've ever done it. I rarely need teleprompters because I usually just know my speeches and I speak off the cuff. But your teleprompters are here and here, so it looks like you're speaking to the crowd. He looked over here. He had a screen to be able to look over here to see to see this graphic. And if the graphic wasn't that dramatic and that telling, he wouldn't have needed it. And if he didn't need it, he wouldn't have then turned his head. So I'm not thinking Biden for the crisis. I'm not, but isn't that ironic? It's just the border crisis actually ended up saving Trump's life. Now, it still needs to be fixed. So whoever wins this election needs to fix it. Because good chance it's not going to it's not going to be what saves somebody from a future assassination attempt. But, the psychology behind Trump getting up there and speaking about, and I understand there was a lot of criticism on both sides of. I didn't watch the convention, so I don't know all the different speakers and what everybody said, and he did bring up the jacket and the uniform of the firefighter who had died, saving his family during the assassination attempt. He did talk about how they have raised over $6 million for the families. And so, there was a moment of silence, but another thing from a psychological standpoint I want to talk about, which he brought up that I noticed, and I think a lot of us noticed, is with any other shooting, crowd scatters. Everybody flees, which you should get away. Duck, cover, or just, get down low, get out. The crowd stayed. There was a shooting. Now, I understand maybe a lot of the people already heard shooters down. And when they looked to the Secret Service and saw the Secret Service comfortable with standing, they didn't feel like they needed to. But everybody stayed. That was intriguing. That was, and I understand, everyone wants to be there to find out what's going on. I mean, is your future president possibly dead? And I understand people want, which is why he stood up and reassured everybody that he's okay, he's alive, because everybody thought he died. When he went down, I'm like, it looked like he grabbed his head. What happened? So for him to be able to get up, ask about his shoes, and then, say, look, fight, it reassured everybody. But you saw people, like, wouldn't people be trying to run for their lives, and they didn't? Just if psychologists go back and look at everything that happened with that, it didn't necessarily, wasn't his textbook. And you have, Trump is 77, 78 years old? You have a man who was basically shot. The ear was bleeding. He said there was a lot of blood. And we saw it does. The ear is a very vascular organ. It's a lot of blood. Obviously, trauma to the head. Knocked down. Picked back up. For him to, converse with the audience to make sure for him to have that thinking, I need to let everybody know I'm okay. And that's a universal sign where, I'm good. And then for him to be able to come to the convention, they could have very easily postponed the convention. I mean, it wouldn't have been easy, but they could have postponed the convention. They could have, for him to show up anyway. Now, for me, whenever anything traumatic happens to me, I just need to keep going. I can't sit home and think about it. And you should take time to heal. You should take some time. And I hope Trump or anybody else that has ever been traumatized or shot at or assaulted can regroup. But I get when people are like, how could he just still go? Maybe it didn't bother him. Oh, it did. You could tell. You could tell his demeanor was different. You could tell he was more solemn. He brought up God a lot more than he usually does. So I think it did, affect him psychologically as it should, makes you more appreciative of life. But I get how he's like, I just need to keep going. For me, that's the day my dad died. I just couldn't sit in my house. And because I had organized his body coming back to Nevada because he was in Kansas at the time, and I, organizing where, having my mom and my brother move out and live in a home that we had, and while organizing all that, I'm like, I might as well work. I just need to keep going. I just need to keep busy. And so that is a coping mechanism, not the most ideal, because you still want to make sure you have time to grieve, you have time to process what happened. Your mind still does need to process, But if part of you is, I need to keep going, I need to keep busy, that's allowed. Now, obviously, we don't want you in control of something that is life or death. I mean, if make sure you're healthy first, make sure you're capable. But I'm not surprised at all. Not surprised that he was there. So 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
The cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hotshot Secret, powered by science.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one thing that I find very shocking is when you have avid hikers who love the outdoors, apologize, got some audio coming in, love being active, love exercising, know how to hike, die on the trail. Every summer, every year, we hear of hikers gone missing or being found dead. And I wonder if people call themselves hikers without understanding there's a process that needs to be done, where you really, really know your trail, you're prepared, and I understand accidents happen. But I'm wondering if we have amateurs that want to, and I support them for wanting to get outdoors and be more active and become hikers. I'm wondering if we don't have enough education to kind of remind people that there's some steps that should be taken. So Fox News has a really nice article saying, follow these 9 safe hiking tips to prevent tragedy on the trail. And first and foremost is study the hiking area before your trip. Familiarize yourself with maps, landmarks, any restricted areas, permits, any, I would also add to that, any new weather patterns. Sometimes you could have mudslides. Sometimes you might think a trail will be there, but because of it could affect the trail. So according to Joey Coe, a trip leader for Backroads, which is a California-based travel touring company, he says research the terrain, trail difficulty, weather conditions, and local wildlife. He suggested saving a photo of the trail map on your phone to reference while hiking. Brilliant idea. You should still be able to access your phone pictures. Now, I understand when your phone battery dies, that's a whole other issue, which is why you should have a battery pack for your phone. That doesn't necessarily require an outlet already pre-charged. They said, although cell phones and mapping apps could be helpful, it's important to have a backup paper map in the event of a lost signal. And I think actual paper map. If your phone dies, you have a paper map, which is why every time you go to these national parks, or you notice they give you a map, a paper map. And I notice everybody just throws it because it's paper. Keep it, please. And do we teach kids how to read paper maps? I had to learn because I was a kid in the 70s and 80s. But nowadays, I don't think the average child is told to follow a map. And you remember we used to do like treasure hunts, and you need to learn how to follow a map. They said also set a time plan for your hike. Whether you're going alone or with a group, you need to let somebody else know where you're going to be and when you're going to be back. I have a friend of mine that goes, he hikes and travels with some buddies off the grid. Obviously, no cell phone service, whatever. And so, but, he lets everybody know this is where I'm going to be, this is when I'm going to be back, etc. A general rule of thumb is to travel 2 miles per hour, adding 1 mile for every 1,000 feet of elevation. So if you're going to be doing an upward hike, understand that might be then 3 miles per hour. And then a lot of people forget that, well, if you're going uphill, that's going to slow you down. And they said, let family members know roughly where you think you would be. Let them know directly where your start and stop are, what trail you're going to take, and also understand the daylight. Project the amount of daylight you're going to have. If you look up, well, it's going to sunset. Sunset's going to be at 7:35 p.m. Just kind of play. Make sure you have some wiggle room. Because if there something can always come up where you might not make it right there as sun is setting. They also suggest to know your limits. Start small and build. Do short, easy, well-marked trails that match your fitness level. I've done trails where it's rough and you're out of breath and you slow down and it turns a 20-minute hike into an hour hike. You need to understand that. Also, then you start to consume more of your water. When you have difficulty, and you need to hydrate, but don't underestimate your water as well. Maintain a safe distance when hiking. They say aim to keep a distance of at least a few feet between hikers to avoid accidents and allow space for wildlife. For people hiking in a group, they say it's best to avoid taking up the whole trail width. So if you notice, a lot of the more veteran hikers will be walking on the right side of the road. It allows other people to pass, not have to fall down the mountain. It's just smart thinking. Also, understand that there could be poisonous vegetation in the region. Keep a safe distance. You don't want to be brushing up against the brush. Prepare for weather conditions. Know the local weather patterns. Understand that there could be some changes. Also, understand that if it's dry versus humidity, that could also change your stamina. And make sure you dress in layers so that if it does get cold, you have something to keep you warm. You could also cool off if you need to undress. So make sure you have layers, extra clothing. And then don't get wet. If you are going to get wet, like wet socks, make sure you have extra ones. Bring hats, sunglasses, sunscreen, rain gear. They also say to make sure, also make sure your kids are in bright, visible clothing. I know people think, well, I don't want an animal to hunt them, so I don't want an animal to see them. I'm telling you right now, an animal knows camouflage. I understand that hunters have some really, really good camouflage, but still, an animal is smart. And so when you have a child that's making noise, they'll know that your child is there. It's more important that you are able to see that child and make sure that if you're hiking on a trail, you could see them, especially if they go off trail. Don't let them run around and play off trail. That's when things can go bad. Wear comfortable, supportive footwear. They suggest well-fitted hiking boots, good ankle support. Always practice with your shoes. Do not wear new shoes on your first hike of that season because you could get blisters. Make sure these are shoes that have already been worn down, a little comfortable, that won't blister you. Don't forget to bring first aid kit. I think trekking poles are really good. It eases a little bit of pressure on the back. I usually don't walk with walking sticks or trekking poles, but they're really good to have. They're also a weapon. So if something does come up to you, you now have a stick. I think you should have flashlight, whistle, GPS, knife on you. I think you should have something to protect yourself with. If it's in an area where they don't have issues with concealed carry, just something so you can protect yourself. But understand, I always would recommend like an EpiPen if you have somebody who's highly allergic to things like that. Stay fueled and hydrated. Have nuts, dried fruit, energy bars, sandwiches. Avoid bringing perishable items. Going, well, I'll have this cheese sandwich. Just trust me, when it gets old, you don't want to get yourself sick. You need to usually plan for carrying your trash. You don't want to litter, and you also don't want to attract wildlife. So you also want to make sure that you have a way to manage your trash so it's not stinking, rotting until you could find an area where you could trash. And I'm assuming these are hikes that are like over a few days. Remember to bring at least a half liter of water for every hour you plan to be hiking. Even more so if you're hiking in the heat. That's a lot of water. And don't plan on using your purifier. I mean, some of us that know what to do, we might be able to, but if you don't have access to a stream or it dried up, you need to make sure you have plenty of water. Be careful with the selfies. The reason why we hear of these people dying and falling over mountains is many of them are in the middle of a selfie or taking pictures. Be aware. So a fantastic review by Fox News. Don't go away. We'll be right back. 1-877-Daliah.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. So when I hear that in terms of voters, one of the most pressing issues on people's minds is abortion, that does kind of confuse me a little bit. I don't think the average Democrat or Republican is putting that higher up than economy, Social Security, the border. And I don't know where the abortion issue is going to end up. I think it would be more popular for everybody if government stayed out, if taxpayers didn't have to pay, if pharmacies and everybody didn't have to be involved, and a doctor and their patient can very privately discuss options, manage it. The doctor could administer the abortion medications. He can dispense them in his office or her office and maybe keep everybody else out. So I think the abortion issue also work to decrease the number of unwanted pregnancies, so we don't have 1 million women struggling and challenged with the challenge of deciding whether to keep the pregnancy or not. So I think bipartisanly there's an answer. But right now it's brought up because the Democrats are having a lot of issues trying to figure out what to campaign on. So abortion keeps coming up. But this was a very interesting poll. They say adults in the U.S. are more worried about Medicare and Social Security benefits than have been talked about. This is a Gallup poll. It was released in June, and 75% of adults aged 65 and younger said they are worried or extremely worried about lack of Medicare availability, according to a press release. With Social Security benefits, 80% of survey respondents said the same. These percentages have increased since the last poll, in 2022. And obviously because I think more people are getting closer to that area. They say the older the respondents, the more likely they were to consider Social Security and Medicare important. 87% of adults 65 or older said they were the highest priority programs, twice as many compared to those between 18 and 29 years of age. The poll also found that more than half of Americans are somewhat more likely or much more likely to make voting decisions based on their support of programs that affect older adults. And among adults 65 and older, that figure rose to 77%. So obviously it makes sense. People are concerned about their health as well. We don't seem to talk about it a lot in the news, but what is each presidential candidate doing from a health perspective? Now, obviously, the Republicans have seen a lot of the shortcomings with Obamacare, with current Social Security, Medicare spending. Democrats fear that if the Republicans want to repeal and replace Obamacare, which they weren't able to do because they didn't have enough votes when Trump was in, that they're going to derail the whole healthcare system. And my worry is we're going to need a much better medical infrastructure than we have right now. Right now, it's an absolute cluster. And of the many concerns we have with the chaos at the border, safety, of course, our young kids abducted, raped, killed. These are huge concerns that come with the border crisis. But another issue that's come with the border crisis is individuals who did not pay their dues and put money into the system are able to get free health care. And as a doctor, I want anybody who needs health care to get it. When I was an ER doc or urgent care doc, I didn't care whether you're legal, illegal. You're sick, I'm going to take care of you. But am I still in practice? If people don't pay their bills, you can't pay your rent. You can't pay your staff. You can't buy the medications. You can't, order labs. Like you need to have money coming in. And so we are losing a lot of the money for benefits, and it's being shunted from those who have worked their whole lives, put away for Social, their paychecks took out for Social Security, Medicare, only to be told it's going to be defunct or we're running out of money. Why? That money should have been earmarked, put into a high percentage yield CD or bond, should have, accumulated interest. And every dime I have put in or you have put in from your paychecks should be earmarked for you. Then our additional taxes go for those who didn't save up enough money. They could still get benefits. But now that we have millions of people coming over that are going to the hospitals, getting taken care of, but can't pay. So we're in trouble. Look at Denver Health. I think the Denver health system had needed millions of dollars infused from the state because of migrant care that wasn't getting reimbursed. And if I said this since 2009, if we go socialized or we go to single payer where government is running our health care, how good is Medicare? The fact that Medicare is in trouble means government does not know how to handle health care. And we're spoiled as Americans. We want $1,600 a month injections for weight loss. You kidding me? There's no way any of these insurance companies are going to be able to make that up on the back end. A $1,600 a month shot, which, by the way, studies have shown they can make it for $5 a month. But right now, $1,600 a month, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,600. The money's going to run out. And so, if everybody's saying, well, we're all worried about, COVID, and we're worried about abortion, and we're worried about this. I mean, those things are obviously on people's minds, but I don't think, I think we really need to ask people, what is it that you're really concerned about at the ballot box? They said 2/3 of Americans feel the country is not prepared to address the overall needs of its rapidly growing older population. They say these concerns may influence who they vote for in upcoming elections. And a concern I have is if a country of younger individuals or people who are not really that bonded with our older population decides to make the decision to, screw them. Older people are going to have problems. If you asked AI, how do we solve our healthcare crisis? It would obviously choose an answer saying, well, protect those who are younger, protect those who are vulnerable, but where they have longevity. A person in their 90s might not be considered as a part of an AI algorithm to be as worth saving as somebody in their 50s or somebody in their 40s. Well, depending on the money and the amount of rationing, that bar could go down, down, down. And I don't want us to be a country where we blow off our 90-year-olds or we blow off our 80-year-olds or our 70-year-olds or our 60-year-olds. The average 90-year-old busted their ass paying their taxes so that we would take care of them. And what's going to eventually happen is there's not going to be enough money and they're going to be left to perish. Not cool. 1-877-DOC-DALI.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.